we have a situation. Just happens to be somebody I know. All right. Well, our gospel reading today has Jesus going to this banquet, this fancy dinner party. And he's looking out and he's watching these people kind of vying for the best seats, the places of what they would call in that day honor. And of course, Jesus has come bringing a message of being humble. And for me, that humble message that he's bringing, that way he's lived his life and taught people, really roots in faith. Because when you understand what God has done for you, you can't help but have some humility about it. That God would even care for us and be mindful of us. That God would bless us with forgiveness and even call us beloved children of God. When you hear that, it's just like, oh my, that's just humbling. Well, the society Jesus was in was one that some people name as an honor-shame society. That's the overarching term that describes that society. That these people would see themselves, if you will, on a pecking order. From the most honorable people down to the honorable to less honorable to not kind of shameful and maybe even very shameful people. That everybody would look around and be judging each other. Where are you at on the pecking order? Where do you fall? Well, if that's this huge and high value for them, you can imagine that they'd like to move up. They want to get a little higher in that pecking order, and one of the ways they thought they could do it is by going to these banquets and getting the better seats. Because if you're sitting in the better seats, if it's a scale of 1 to 10 and you're at 5 and you think, well, maybe I can get up to a 3, so you pop yourself in a 3 seat. Maybe other people, and you get to stay there, people say, well, man, they're a 3. Look at that. They've got more honor than I was thinking they had. They're doing better. Look at that. They've kind of, if you will, got themselves up the chain a little bit. They moved themselves up. And of course, Jesus' instruction to them was, don't go grabbing after that seat of honor, because if you get your 3, the host may come to you and say you need to move down, and by the time he does that, you may be down at an 8 or a 10. Who knows? He said instead, grab a lower seat, grab a lower number, and trust that God or trust that the host will see you there and he'll move you up. And he'll take care of you that way. That honor and shame are still a thing, I think, in our society today. We still look around and say, well, this person's honorable and really respected, has this dignity about him, and that really matters to us. But I would say, if I would look at our world today, that we're a little less honor shame and maybe a little bit more wealth shame. That's the value that matters most. Because a couple arguments for my case there. One is, someone who has a lot of wealth today is going to be given those best seats, or at least buy those best seats and be treated really well, even though we might think them a little dishonorable. Isn't that the case? That can very easily happen today. And so the honor isn't always that first thing, I don't think. And the other way I say that this wealth shame thing matters so much is because I think we are always trying to show that we have a place or a status. That's what it's about, isn't it? That our wealth, we show some sign of a little wealth so that we have some place in society, some status. Maybe it's a new phone or new clothes or a trip or a car that we drive or a place where we live, just some little way. And even when we can't afford them, how many people are doing that out there? Grabbing after this stuff, kind of showing, looky here, just so people kind of notch them up a little bit. Oh, yeah, they have a little more standing in place. They own that, right? We judge them that way. That's the pecking order today. That's the status measuring thing, I think, more today than, maybe in the ancient world. Like I said, honor still matters. So as much as we're people that are trying to show our status or place that way, there's a downside to this, and that's, of course, the shame side. And as much as there's some feel good for being honored, isn't there? To be given the best seat, or to, someone to dote on you for some reason, or to look up to you. There's a feel good to that. I think the bigger danger for us is we're worried about being ashamed. That the negative side almost has more pressure in our lives than the positive side does. That'd be my argument, at least from my experience. The shame is this just huge, powerful thing, often running in the unconscious. We're not really judging, not really feeling it straight out. But the shame is that a general characterization of a person as insignificant or lesser or, someone to be looked down on or embarrassed by or even a bad person. That's the stuff of shame. And we're so afraid of that whole thing that it just presses us to get something, to have something, to be somebody according to the standards of the pecking order of this world, to have a place, to have a status. So we're just grasping after all that stuff. And again, I think this is really unconscious, at least in my experience. It took some help over some period of time for me to even touch into this in me. This shame starts with this, for me, in the gut. When I finally hit it hit right here across it, just burned. And when I really felt it, it started going up my backbone, up top of my head, tightened my face up, just froze me. That's the stuff of shame. It's powerful. It shapes, I think, the jobs we choose, the friends we pick, the way we present ourselves. It is just this powerful force out there. God forbid. So as much as Jesus is giving people instruction on how to navigate the pecking order of the day, if you will, the honor-shame pecking order, I think the more powerful thing Jesus came to do is offer us a place outside of it. As much as we got to negotiate this whole thing, Jesus says there's a whole spiritual realm, a whole value of God that says you don't have to be lost in this thing. You're going to negotiate it. Yeah, it's here. But I give you a new foundation. I am telling you God loves you where you are. It calls you a beloved child of God. And I would call you together as people and celebrate that by marking them in their baptism. You are a beloved child for God forever. Indelibly marking them. No one can take that away. That is a place and status higher than anything this world will offer you in the material or in the social realm. Beloved child of God. Just a gift to you. And it comes and it just, I think, smashes right into this world order, and Jesus says it makes you look at it different and approach it differently. Don't get lost into it. Stay grounded. You are all of the highest honor in the greatest status. Beloved children of God, a gift to you. Just give it freely. Not nuts. And so this other system that we have to deal with day to day just starts losing its power. It gets emptied of its pain and pressure when you just own it, who you are as God's people, the gift that's given you in God. And you think how Jesus lived this in his own life. He didn't just teach it. He lived it. Now, Paul's description of him was, even though he comes in the form of God, Jesus came in the form of God. He didn't exploit it. He didn't take advantage of it. He didn't even worry about it. It goes on to say he emptied himself. It took the form of a servant, the lowest form. He came to be a servant, a slave of people. And then it says he humbled himself even to the point of death on a cross. Right? Cross is the execution of the Romans for the worst of the worst criminals. He humbled himself even to do that. And he trusted that God then would exalt him and lift him up. That even though he had this place, he humbled himself knowing that God would lift him up. So we humble ourselves, not worried about this world's order, trusting that God is going to lift us up too. Well, there's a writer, a Southern writer, Flannery O'Connor. And her illustration, I think I've used it before, but it's worth hearing 100 times. And it's her vision. She's kind of one of these tight Southern white Christian women. And Flannery O'Connor writes about the South, poking at the South. And she has this woman who's just been upset by all these kind of humbling things in her life, get a vision of heaven, or people going to heaven. And she begins by saying, her vision begins, a vast horde of people on this long path going up to heaven. And she's looking at him, and at the front of the line, here are the white trash and the blacks and the freaks and the crazy people, some of them leaping along like frogs. Isn't that great? And then she looks behind them, and there's the people she kind of recognizes, people like herself at the end of the line. Respectable, walking in order, singing on tune, of all things. Those who have been given a little bit of everything and the God-given wit, she writes, to use it rightly. But when she looks closer, she sees their faces are in shock. Because as they go up at the end of this line towards heaven, all their so-called virtues are being burned away. This is Turpin's vision. And here's my thought for you today. I'm joining at the end of the line when I get there. And the difference, I hope, between me and her crowd is this, just this. That I have the faith and humility to simply be grateful that God would be gracious and have me. That I would just simply be grateful and gracious that God would have me. Amen.